Well, good morning, Annie.
Hi, Carrie.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Weird day, but that's okay. We'll take each Friday as it comes. Just as good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know what? The highlight of my day is being able to do this with you. And I'm so excited that I got to pick the reading this week.
Well, I think it's only fair. We have to go back and forth
Well,
and
there we
choose
go.
who.
And I'm just so not into Revelation. So I was really glad that we had the option of reading from James. So today is Friday, November the 13th. And we're going to be reading from the letter of James, chapter 1, verses 16 to 27.
Again, one of those books of the Bible that we don't always read from. We
No, no.
don't hit the minor writers very often. So this is kind of a nice change.
It is. And when you think that James the Just, which is his name, was the brother of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
We really don't get to hear from him. I'm going to do a quick adjustment again because we've got a noise bounce back. There we go. I had to fix your mic.
Thank you.
So yeah, James was the letters
Brother
written in the
Jesus, yeah.
of the authority of James, who is Jesus's brother, and I absolutely love the letters of James, right? Because like he was constantly encouraging the followers of Jesus to just like adopt a courageous faith because that's what they needed to cope with sort of life as it was happening. And there was just lots of trials and tribulations,
Absolutely.
and then for him a more like a high moral ethic was really, really important.
But also, I think that when I read through James, I always think that he had kind of the inside scoop. Maybe
Well,
I'm
yeah.
wrong on that, but he kind of, being the brother of Jesus, that must have had its own burdens. Really, it must have. So it's just kind of interesting to hear his perspective,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's just refreshing to read it. So,
Yeah.
he writes in such a positive way.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you're down, read James.
That's right.
And if you can't find it, it's near the end of the New Testament before we get to Revelation. Just
That's
if you're
right.
looking for it.
So I'm going to actually read it. I have my handy dandy little light here because the light in the room's pretty poor. So again, James chapter 1 verses 16 to 27. Do not be deceived, my beloved. Every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of truth, so that we would become a kind of first fruits of his creatures. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourself of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness. I like that. And welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in the mirror, for they look at themselves and on going away immediately forget what they look like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doings. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself untainted by the world. Like, isn't that an awesome reading?
Well, it's just so expressive, and I think when you read through it, you can visualize what he's talking about, and it's just to me, it's beautiful writing. It gives us an opportunity to really see the beauty in what he wants us to see.
Yeah. Well, and what I really love about this is that we're coming in at the end of a conversation that he's having, right? And so he's responding to a belief that some of these Hellenistic Jews have, that each person is has both an evil inclination and a good inclination. And
Right.
because God created both, well, then a person can sort of blame God for any moral oops. And so James is saying, no.
No.
But he does it
do
with
that.
such compassion, because, like, that's why I kept that first verse in. Do not be deceived, my beloved. Like, he does it with such care and kindness, right? It's like, and then he goes on to describe the generosity of God, which I just love. And then how we are new creations. And then, of course, at the end, he does something that, well, this is my go-to, right? He talks about the importance of community, right?
Ah,
That, like, our outward acts are an expression of our inward love and relationship with God,
that's right.
right? And so that's what we hear all the way through his letter.
I think it's also neat the way he describes God. Coming down. This is in verse 17. Coming down from the Father of lights.
Yeah.
And as our time has changed and it's darker at different times during the day, it's now, I'm just thinking, as I have lights on at different times that I didn't used to a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But thinking Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change.
Isn't that neat?
And I just think of that as we were setting this up, and there's shadows and you're in dark room. Like, yeah, it's like there is no variation or shadow due to change. That makes it sound like the Father of lights is constant.
Yeah.
That will always be there, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's kind of good to know, right?
Well, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome good news when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the movie Lilo and Stitch?
Yes.
Okay, so when I think about what James is really trying to fight against here with this idea of, we have this inclination to evil and we have this inclination to good. I have this image of Lilo doing her picture of Stitch, and, she's got him colored halfway up, and it's in dark color because that's where he's bad, and then halfway up is good, and then you see his good sort of getting more and more and his bad diminishing. And
Okay, I never thought of comparing Lilo and Stitch to a James reading. Okay, good on you.
Right?
Wow.
But I just think, like, here's Lilo. He was like Stitch. He was this created thing, right? I mean, and he's an alien, all of that. But she saw the goodness in him. And even against all evidence of all of the crazy stuff and the naughty stuff that he did, this is beginning to sound like a children's focus, but she saw his goodness, and the goodness, it began to shine through. And the more he engaged with community, the more he engaged a loving nature, that goodness grew and grew. And I think that's what James is calling this community too. It's like, it's so important that we have that moral compass that has us treating one another well, because that's going to enrich the love that we can actually share with a community, and that love that we share with the community is actually the outward evidence of the love that we have for God, and that the love God has for us.
It just all makes sense. Let me put it like that.
What would we do without Lilo and Stitch?
I mean, really. Now I'm going to have to go find the movie. You realize that now. You started.
There we go. The theology based on.
I'm sure there's other, theology based on, but yeah, James is a neat guy, and I think it's neat that it's added into our weekly lectionary. So for those that haven't even wandered down that direction, have a read. I think you'll be hopefully inspired. Like we were.
Yeah.
Because we're the Pop-Tarts, and we get inspired by just small words and things.
Just about anything. Anyways, I think that's a great good news message for the day. Thank you, Annie, for joining me via Zoom. So many cool things we can do these days. And I want to wish everybody blessings on their day. I hope it is full of just wonderful things, moments that you see the grace of God, and you feel the good news of the gospel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, take care. Have a wonderful day,
Thanks.
Annie, and everybody else.
You too.
Bye-bye.